Good evening, Islam, and Namaste, everyone. I'm Khalid Umar, and today I'm your host in the discussion under the auspices of Sangam Talks. And our topic is broadly breaking of Pakistan. Um, I would rather call it breaking of Pakistan number two, because the country, which was created by the Act of Parliament of United Kingdom in 1947, that actually ceased to exist in 1971 when the Bangladesh came into existence. So the breaking of Pakistan will not be a new thing, but it would be a catastrophic event anyway. Pakistan is currently the world's sixth most populous country with a population of over 220 million. So with the land area of being the 36th largest in the world. So if Pakistan eventually breaks down, it would have a catastrophic repercussions all over the region. Now, coming to the format of the discussion, I would be asking our panel, which comprises of eminent scholars, historians, security experts, and political activists, and I would like to know their point of view on the questions which come out of this discussion. We have Tariq Fatehji with us. He doesn't need any introduction, but for a background, he's a Pakistani-born Canadian liberal journalist. He's an author and a commentator, and is well known in the world for his criticism on Pakistan and on Islamism. And Tariq Fatehji is well known for his very controversial public figure in the Islamic countries. And then we have Dr. Ashok Behuria, who is a fellow and coordinator of South Asian Center for Strategic Studies. He's a PhD in International Relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University. And he has worked on the India-Pakistan relationship during the 80s for his PhD. And he joined IDSA in 2003. And before that, he has worked as an assistant professor at International Center for Peace Studies. And he has so many books and research journals to his credit. We have Razak Baloch Sahab with us. He has been working for Baloch national struggle to achieve the freedom of Balochistan. And he's the Secretary General of Baloch American Congress. And he belongs to a renowned political family from Balochistan. And his struggle is for the against the illegal occupation of the Pakistan army. And he has frequently been visiting Geneva and Washington, D.C. for awareness of the Balochistan cause. We have Zafar Sahito, who is the founder and chief organization of GSN Freedom Movement. And he's living in USA in exile since 2017. And he calls himself as somebody from belonging to the occupied Sindh. And he's a leader of pro-freedom movement of Sindh. He started his political career as a college leader from a GA Sindh Student Federation. So we have a galaxy of panel experts on our panel, and I would like to start the conversation posing a question to our dear friend Tariq Fatehji. And my question would be, what is the likelihood of Pakistan breaking down into different geographic or balkanization in the near foreseeable future? So Tariq Fatehji, please.
Unlike many other places, like tiny countries like Eritrea or East Timor or, Western Sahara or even Kosovo, places like that, countries have won their freedom by fighting to end the occupation. The problem that faces Pakistan is that it never was a country and never could be a country because what is today Pakistan never wanted to be Pakistan. The Pakistan movement essentially was the movement of Indian Urdu-speaking Muslims from the states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and princely states of Bhopal and Hyderabad. It was their rejection of the Indianness that led to the British after Second World War worry about creating a buffer state between the Red Army just north of Afghanistan and a potentially free left of center government in India. And this occurrence took place in a hodgepodge manner in 1942, in what is 41, March 23rd, which is called the Pakistan Resolution, which wasn't Pakistan Resolution when it was initially tabled in Lahore. It was actually the 10th anniversary of celebrating Bhagat Singh's death anniversary, or honoring him. But when Pakistan was created, it was primarily in Bengal. That was the only state in all of India that had a Muslim League government and that had gone through the British testing phase when Bengal was divided between East and West Bengal. So they had already done this, and that's the only place where Jinnah's Muslim League had a majority. Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi was the Prime Minister of Bengal. And imagine that it was Mr. Sohrawardi who was disallowed from entering Pakistan once Pakistan was created. And Mr. Jinnah took on the task of telling the Bengali-speaking Bengalis of East Pakistan, Muslim Bengalis, that their mother tongue should now be Urdu. And that was the end of Pakistan, because even today, the International Mother Tongue Day is to commemorate the January 8, 1952 or 53 mass killings in Dhaka, which were a first sign of rebellion against the elites of UP that went on to make Karachi as the capital of Pakistan. Because Karachi itself was a Hindu majority city in 1946-47. So it was artificially created as an afterthought, and as a result of the Second World War, leaving behind millions of Red Army soldiers and a completely depleted American or British armies. There was nothing there, and contrary to what all of us are educated, the World War was fought primarily between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And that is where almost 30 million casualties just north of the Wakhan Peninsula took place. So that's the background under which Pakistan was created, and that dissipated and disappeared right from the start. Firstly, because Mr. Jinnah had to topple two governments in Sindh and Punjab, and then within months of taking over as Governor General, he wasn't even the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He sat as the King's representative. They carried out the massacre of Pashtuns in a place called Barbara, where 700 followers of Ghaffar Khan were slaughtered, and the bodies dumped into the river behind them. So Pakistan was gone before it was created. As far as Balochistan is concerned, it was an independent country. It was not an Indian princely state. And Balochistan, or the state of Kalat, was proclaimed as an independent country when Mr. Jinnah represented the Khan of Kalat at the Cripps Commission and was paid as fees. He was paid by his weight in gold and his sister's weight in silver. So they were paid, they won the independence for Balochistan, and then after the Pakistan army got a drubbing in Jammu and Kashmir, the army was sent and Balochistan was occupied, including its Balochistan of the state of Kalat had an embassy in Karachi. So that was, I think, March 1948, that Pakistan gobbled up the state of Kalad, Balochistan, and the entire setup. So this was never a country. It was never meant to be a nation. There is no concept of commonality between, say, a Sindhi or a Punjabi. Otherwise, the Durand line would not have divided Pashto-speaking Pashtuns into two territories with the same language, same culture, same religion, same sect. But they were cut over there earlier in the late 1800s, and subsequently large areas of Balochistan were incorporated into Punjab. I'm talking of Dera Ghazi Khan and those areas. And then the British left. So the people here had nothing to do with each other, because, can you imagine, Pakistan had to reject India but adopt an Indian language as its national language, which 5% of the population spoke. Still, everyone speaks Punjabi in Punjab, but are too ashamed to admit that, because they've generated this phenomena. If they're only people on earth who consider the mother tongue as a language for shame. So you will never see Pakistanis who are of Punjabi background ever carry out a conversation, say on television or seriously with each other in Punjabi. So it is not a country per se. The elements of India, its Hindu name, its Sandhu name, all derive from the Indus Valley. Mohenjo-daro is the source of India or Hindustan, not Pakistan, but it is outside the reach of India. And one can blame India too. India's Congress leaders for having abandoned, in the words of Ghaffar Khan, abandoning him to the jackals. And that's what happened. So this will slowly dissipate. There might be tragedies along the way, but in Sindh, the Muslim League assassinated Allah Bakhshumro, who was against the Muslim League. He was shot while riding in a rickshaw, I think. Similar things happened in Punjab, where the Muslim League never won government, and it was the Unionists who were in power. And even after partition, Mr. Jinnah had to manipulate and topple governments. The Koro government had to go. Doltanas was encouraged to topple the Mamdot ministry over there. In Frontier, Dr. Khan Sahab's government was toppled. So this is a totally artificial entity whose purpose after Second World War was to keep the Soviet Union away from the Arabian Sea. Nothing else mattered to them. That is why even before partition, actually, Churchill had asked VP Menon if India would permit the formation of a base in northwestern India, which is the Peshawar region. And they said no, and Mr. Jinnah said, of course, और क्या चाहते हो महाराज, हम आपको सिजदे में जाके देंगे. And then you remember, some of you might recall, B.R. Waite's affair, where the U-2 flights took place and Gary Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union. The trial took place. तो ये मुल्क बना ही है वेस्ट की इंपीरियल खिदमत के अंजाम से, कि आप यहाँ बैठे रहे, हमारी चौकीदारी करें, and we will pay you. Your army will just fight its own people, whether 10 million Bangladeshis or 500,000 Balochistanis or whoever you have to kill, you have a free license to kill. You become the champions of the banner of Islam, and we in the West, we need to sell arms, whether it is to topple Mossadegh or whether it is to make sure that the Gulf countries do not get democratically elected governments, or that India doesn't move more to the Soviet Union. That was its purpose. There are many other things that cannot be said on polite conversations on television, but Pakistan served exactly that purpose and was flung away and now is withering away under the weight of its new masters, which are the Chinese. And as you will see that India's babus will sleep while the Pakistani generals will reap, and the rest of our people will suffer because China has understood that anything to be done in India will take ages, because every babu has only one purpose: his personal prosperity, his son as an MBA, or no disturbance allowed. So even when Indian fishermen just last week were caught, arrested, and taken away by the Pakistanis, there was not even a whisper anywhere in New Delhi or Mumbai or any place. 26/11 is just approaching. You will notice in all of Mumbai, there's not a single place that is a memorial to the hundreds who died as a result of Pakistan's attack on 26/11. So we are in a very strange situation that the very people who could help regain Sindh, which is written in its national anthem, are the ones who said, calm down, at least we get cheaper tomatoes and Pakistan military manufactured cement, which the Indians import from Pakistan. So we are caught in two dilemmas. Had there been slight Gundagardi culture in India, Pakistan would have disappeared. Or if Pakistan had not been the people who were convinced that the goal in life is to kill every Hindu and do Ghazwa Hind, which is destruction of all of India, this problem would not have occurred. But the British made Deoband, and here we are suffering as a result. So I don't know, maybe my point of view might not be in resonance with others, but this is how I genuinely feel, having lived my first 30 years in that country. And
Sir, this is you are given a very very enlightened background of the whole issue, and I would at this moment really like to request Dr. Ashok his views, what specifically what Tariq Fatehji has said, that the apathy of the present government or the in India about the issues which Tariq Fatehji has raised, especially about their total neglecting the 26/11 coming up pretty soon, and the way they are not that proactive in helping the Sindhu Desh movement or the Balochistan freedom movement. So how you would put your point across?
No, I think Tariq Fatehji has a point in the sense that when Pakistan came into being, it was the manifestation of a particular idea, and the idea couldn't survive. You have several way of putting it, but Pakistan could not survive the way it wanted to survive, and the idea for the sake of which it was established didn't survive as well. So having said that, let me try to put what Tariq Fatehji said a little differently, in the sense that what he said about the authorities of Pakistan in the post August 14, 1947 days, the authorities were saying something before the partition, and they were completely different after the partition. Like for example, in the Lahore resolution, it was said, it will be a combination of sovereign states, not autonomous states, not sovereign states, autonomous independent states. But after Pakistan was born, all the provinces, they were put under strict watch, and Jinnah centralized authority, and that authoritarian reflex continues to this date. In fact, if you look at the Hamudur Commission report, which they themselves prepared, They say that, as because the militarism started taking the lead, Pakistan gradually crumbled. In the sense that, in order to confront the Bengali assertion, they tried to have a one unit system where all the provinces were made to were clubbed together, despite the differences and despite the inter-ethnic harmony not in place. I will not say disharmony was there, but harmony was certainly not there, and they all were looking forward to kind of an autonomous existence, and that autonomous existence was not granted to them. So Pakistan became a very, very authoritarian state. About what Tariq Pataji said about the imperial goal in the formation of Pakistan, it is very interesting, Tariq ji. If you look at the rhetoric of the TTP today, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan today, it is very interesting. There is a video which they put out in 2014, 2015. It was called Azadi Ka Fareb. In Azadi Ka Fareb, they say that it was because of an imperial conspiracy that Pakistan has been created. Of course, they take a different point of view altogether, but they say this partition was a partition of Indian Muslims. They don't talk about India and Pakistan. They said it was a partition of Indian Muslims, and they say that ये तक़सीम मुसलमाने हिंद था. And they say that ये जो है, it didn't only partition the Indian Muslims, it also हमें हमारे हमवतनों से जुदा किया गया. And it was all because of an larger imperial conspiracy. And then comes the sectarian animus. Interestingly quite, Pakistan has been, home to many sectarian feelings. And what happened, they said that it is the Shias who were primarily responsible for this kind of a state of affairs, because they fell into the trap of the imperialists, and they carved out a country which could not become what it wanted to become. That's very interesting. They are because this was put out by TTP, where Deobandi Wahhabi sentiments are running very hard, and they are saying this. So in a way, they say that Pakistan was supposed to be an Islamic country, but it could not become one. So there is a frustration amongst the liberals like Tariq Pataji and others, and many of us who would have really imagined that what Jinnah said on 11th August were true, and Pakistan would have evolved as a purely democratic state where ethnicities won't matter, religion won't matter, and it will be a normal state. It was not a normal state, where even the Islamists, the very Islamists who wanted it to happen, they themselves are not happy about the state of affairs. Very interestingly, I always say that Pakistan can be divided into 4 different spheres. One sphere is Jinnah, which is total secular liberal, but used Islam as a weapon. Then you have Liaquat Ali Khan, who is a right-wing liberal, who would like Islamic principles to be there, but he would like the statecraft to be there in a modern form. Then you have the third component, the third sphere, which belong to people like Maulana Maududi, who said, no, it has to be a Sharia-based system. If this is not the one you are fighting for, then what else was Pakistan meant to be? Then you have yet another group, which is the Faiz Ahmad Faiz group. That sphere, the left-wing, secular, they want humanitarian, humanist approach that state would have approached. These 4 different spheres, different zones that are there in Pakistan. I would say that none of these zones succeeded in converting Pakistan according to their vision, according to their aspirations. So Pakistan in that sense was a complete failure on all fronts. And now what has happened? Because of the mistakes that the leaders committed, what has happened? What has come by? It is like this. Even the Islam, which was used as a binding force, my hypothesis is Islam has become a disuniting force. Because today, if you talk about Islamic Pakistan, the Deobandis said it will be a Deobandi Islamic state. The Barelvis will say it is a Barelvi Islamic state. The Ahl Hadith will say that it is a Ahl Hadith state. So you have different versions of Islam in Pakistan, getting into a competitive radicalism mode. It is a competitive radicalism at play, and which is creating destruction all the time. And they have no respect for ethnicities. Ethnicities which have been there even before Islam came into operation. They were all, like Bacha Khan's son once said famously that, I have been, for hundreds of years, I have been an Afghan, I've been a Pathan, I have only been a Pakistani for the last 30, 40 years, like that, in a way, the ethnic identities were made to suffer. And that is one of the reasons why the Bengalis walked out. And you have now the Sindhis. My one personal take is this: because of the rise of the Bhutto family, the Sindhis have been, I would say, a son of their political aspirations. When you join the loot, and you join an establishment which is looting you all, then you feel that I'm part of the system. So many Sindhis have been part of the system in one way or other, and so have been the Pashtuns. But if you look closely, the Pashtuns and the Sindhis, they're not happy. Even today, if you look at the PTM and look at the way the Pakistani state is responding to them, the way Pakistan state is responding to them is exactly like the way Jinnah responded to the call for Bengali language. It is an authoritarian streak which is out there in full play. And that is why PTM, and they have now, the unifier for Pakistan has been anti-India sentiment. They know that Islam is not working. What else would? It's India, anti-India sentiment. So they are now trying to use this Indian sentiment to the maximum. TTP, it's funded by India. PTM, it is funded by India. Sindhi resistance movement is funded by India. Baloch resistance movement funded by India. You wanted me to tell you, why India is not doing enough. I said, even if we are not doing anything, the Pakistan thing thinks we are doing everything. So this is also another contradiction which is out there, the irony which is there. You have to acknowledge. So the point I am making is, Pakistan is headed in a suicidal path. And whether India does anything or not, the kind of suicidal path that it has taken, it will fall under its own pressure. The same forces that Pakistan has created over the years has culminated in the formation of a group like TTP. And they are now trying to turn the attention of TTP towards Kashmir and India. That your fellow brethren Muslims are being killed in India, go and rescue them, go and help them, go and help the Kashmiris. So this is the strategy they are using now. My hunch is, it may work in the short term, but in the long term, it's not going to work. Because the idea that they have legitimized, and the idea that they have, hard pedaled and not soft pedaled, hard pedaled over the years, the idea of an Islamic state or Islamic community is going to overpower them. And with the success of Taliban in Afghanistan, I think this is going to be even more and more assertion on the part of these Islamist forces, and they will also fight among themselves. You see, today TLP is saying that Sharia, they're fighting as the cartoons which were published in France. They want the French ambassador out. They are Barelvis. And in India, everybody believes that Barelvis are very, very quiet people, not knowing that the Barelvis were the ones who fought for Pakistan. So it's interesting. So it's a radicalization at work inside Pakistan, which is going to be the undoing of Pakistan. So, and whether India is doing anything or not, I would rather say that we should sit it out and watch it happen. And if something is happening somewhere, maybe at a very rudimentary level, and if Pakistanis are worried about that, let them be worried about that. So this is my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tariq Fatehji spoke about the historical background, and Dr. Ashok talked about the religious extremism, the way it is affecting the geographical entity of Pakistan. Now I'm inviting Mr. Razak Baloch's attention to the fact that Balochistan, with 42% of the Pakistan's land mass, is only 4% of its population, and it's under the occupation of the Pakistan Army since 1948. So how he sees the current struggle of the Balochs for an independence from the occupying Pakistan army. So, welcome with your remarks, Mr. Razak Baloch.
Good morning, United States. I'm in United States. Good morning and good evening in India. Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, Salam. I will start with this. Balochistan is the most sufferer of this illegal state came into being. And when Jinnah became Governor General, he became the servant of Queen. And he died as a servant. He never served his people. And people in Pakistan, especially the elite of Pakistan, they tell us, I'll say in Hindi, in Urdu, बलोच जो हैं गद्दार हैं. मेरा सबसे बड़ा सवाल ये है कि तुम्हारा जिसको आप कायदे आजम बोलते हो, सबसे बड़ा गद्दार तो वो है जिसने हिंदुस्तान से गद्दारी किया. हम अपने वतन से प्यार करते हैं, बलूचिस्तान से. बलूचिस्तान का इस सारे सिनारियों में इसलिए जो है अहमियत हुई. That's why it became important, because Pakistan and British wanted the strategic depth. To reach that depth, they would have done anything and everything to capture Balochistan. There was no other way. Our parliament, our leadership was so advanced that we did elections and we did have a parliament, and that parliament, Mir Gonspaksh Bizenjo was the leader. Mir Gonspaksh Bizenjo put the resolution, and the majority of our parliament said we are not going to merge with Pakistan. So that was the decision of parliament. The Pakistan rejected that decision of our parliament and sent the army to capture Balochistan. Since that day, and let me put it this way, whoever put the resolution and passed the resolution in parliament, they were all arrested and tortured. This should have been our fate. If that leadership of Mir Gonspaksh Bizenjo, Sardar Ataullah Khan Mangal, Khair Bakhsh Mari, Gul Khan Nasir, and Tariq Ji also spent some time in jail with those great leaders. Let me pay tribute to Sardar Ataullah Khan Mangal, which just passed away in September. And if our resources of Balochistan were in the hand of these great leaders, we would have been a much, much, much better country, because we were neighboring country to India. We were neighboring country to India, but we have a role to play, and we struggle for the freedom of the whole region, Balochistan including India. But India took their part. I disagree with Mr. Ashok respectfully that we're going to sit it out. The more you're going to sit it out, the more we're going to suffer. You took your part. We also, gave our, let me put it in Hindi, yogdan. And you should see what is going on in your neighborhood. And you abandon Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Mir Gonspaksh Bizenjo, and you throw us into the geethers, they call it jackals. And Pakistan, if Pakistan was Jinnah's 11 September speech was to make a secular country, then why you need to break India? India is still a secular country and a democratic setup. This country was created as a garrison state to serve British and Americans' interest. And that's why the army knows, Pakistan army knows, they have the impunity to kill the Bengalis, kill Baloch, kill Sindhi, Pashtun, Gilgit-Baltistani, Kashmiris. And that impunity is still going on. We have to work against that impunity. We are in the civilized world. America and Western countries, they talk about human rights. They talk about human dignity. And they close their eyes when the human dignity is what happened in with human dignity in Bangladesh and Balochistan and Sindh and Pashtunistan. So you have to play your part. You are not why you should only benefit and we suffer. You have to play your part. Be strong. And look at the more time you give them, the more madrasas they're building. What do you think? Who captured Afghanistan today? These madrasa people created by army. So you have to play your part. What I'm saying is why this country must be broken? Because this is a failed country. And they will never reform and they will never go into democratic system. The only way is to stop their funding. We are working to see that America, United States, Western countries must stop funding them, cut their lifeline. And look what they're doing. The Pakistan is helping the POK leaders and helping the Khalistani movement openly. So why you are shy? You claim your sin, as Tariq ji said. You claim your sin at least. You put your pundits into their place. Have a spine and take some actions. If you don't take some actions, what you gonna be treated in the history? We are hoping that strong leadership has come to India. They're going to take some actions. So you have to take some action and openly support these movements. Look, unless this country is there, it's going to be a problem for you, for us, and for all the nationalities. So this country must be broken into four. Let there be a Punjabi army for Punjab. Let there be a Sindhi army for Sindhis. Let there be a Pashtun army for Pashtuns. Let there be a Baloch army for Baloch. Then that's the only way to have peace in this region, to contain whatever Pakistan is doing. Pakistan is just trying to feed their big army. So that big army cannot sustain. Pakistan does not have an economy. Pakistan was not created for the economy, for the education, for the infrastructure. Pakistan was created to feed this mercenary army. This is a mafia mercenary army. When they don't get support from outside, they start selling the land inside country. This is a mafia army. They have even bakeries. They're selling goats. They sell everything to get the money. The people are suffering. I'm not saying. See, let me tell you one thing. In my leader, Baloch American Congress, we created. Our leader is Dr. Tarachand Baloch, which is from Hindu community. In Balochistan in 1947, there was bloodshed all over India. Not a single Hindu left Balochistan. That is our culture. That is our tradition. And you just throw us into this and then you say, okay, we are just sit it out and wait it out. You have to take some actions. And with that, see, we are working outside the country to see that their lifeline is cut. They reduced some help to the army, the Americans and all. But now the Americans also know that Pakistan is a double game country. 20 years they get money from America, and they were getting their cut and feeding the Taliban. They are still alive. And they don't see, because we know that even in United States, some people are benefiting. That's why they continue this war. So this must be checked and balanced, and our movement should be supported. And this country must be broken into, you see, this is a nation states, as Tariq ji said. Small countries came into being. We have the cadre, we have the education, we have the capabilities to control our area, to make it a country, and as well as Sindhis and Pashtuns. But this army belonged to just one region. Sardar Ataullah Khan said, जब बलूचिस्तान पाकिस्तान से अलग होगा तो सबसे ज्यादा रोने की आवाजें पंजाब से आएंगी. We are not against civilians, Punjabis. They are also our brothers. I only have one complaint with them, that they should rise and raise their voice what their army, which is the ethnic Punjabi army, doing in other areas. Like Sardar Ataullah Khan Mangal said when Nawaz Sharif visited him, he said, तुमने ये जो बेलगाम घोड़े बलूचिस्तान में छोड़े हुए हैं, इनको लगाम कौन देगा? तो इनको लगाम पंजाब की आवाम को देना चाहिए. When I say Punjab, it means this side of Punjab, which is in Pakistan. So पंजाब के आवाम को भी उठना पड़ेगा अपने ये घोड़ों को लगाम देने के लिए. और इस रीजन के पास जब तक इतनी बड़ी आर्मी है जिसके पास खाने को पैसा नहीं है, तो ये अपनी बदमाशियां करता रहेगा. और इसके सिवा इसका कोई इलाज नहीं है कि इस मुल्क के 4 टुकड़े होने चाहिए, ताकि हर कौम अपना जो है आराम से शांति से जी सके, अपने आप को प्रॉस्पर कर सके, अपने रिसोर्सेज उसके लिए इस्तेमाल होने चाहिए. पंजाब अपने रिसोर्सेज अपने लिए इस्तेमाल करें, हमारे सरांकों पे, समझे ना. हम सदियों से रह रहे थे और रह रहे हैं और रहेंगे. और ये जैसे तारिक सर ने कहा कि भाई ये आर्टिफिशियल कंट्री है, तो आर्टिफिशियल कंट्री जो है वो आर्टिफिशियल ऑक्सीजन पे चलती है. इनका ऑक्सीजन मास्क निकालना पड़ेगा ताकि दूसरे कौमों को जो है जीने का और ब्रीथ करने का मौका मिले. दिस इज माय पॉइंट.
Thank you very much, Razak Saab. Many people don't know that when the British left India, Kalat was an independent state for nearly 7.5 months until the Pakistani military invaded.
First, I'd like to take exception to Ashok Bhai's sentence, which depicts everything Indian about it, that India is going to sit it out. You sat out the entire Second World War, not knowing what direction to take when the forces of Hitler were fighting the Soviet Union. 30 million people died, and that same lack of direction is reflected in when you dismiss the case, we'll sit it out. You, sir, have sat it out for 1,000 years. You said, sit it out, slave dynasty aa gayi, sit it out, Babar aaya hai, sit it out, the Portuguese. You have sat it out and made India, which should be on the UN Security Council, as a third world country. Because जैसे गांधी जी ने कहा था कि हर बस में एक मुसलमान गुंडा जरूर होता है, दादागिरी करता. आप सिट इट आउट कर जाते हैं, वो आपको बॉम्बे में थप्पड़ मार के आपके लोगों को कत्ल करके वापस आ जाता है और कराची में रहता है, और आप कहते हैं जरा प्लीज गिव अस सम प्रूफ एंड पेपर्स हियर एंड देयर. खुदा के वास्ते सर, टेल योर कॉलीग्स, sit it out is a death sentence for India. China, why should China be on the Security Council and not India? You will never be with that attitude. China is taking half of Africa into its mold. It's trying to isolate India from all sides, from Maldives to Bangladesh to Sri Lanka and Pakistan. And the Indian intelligentsia says, let's sit it out. You've been doing that. And I'll add what happened, how India betrayed the Baloch. Let me put it on the record. Abdus Samad Achakzai and the Kalat leaders went to New Delhi to say that the state of Kalat wishes to join the dominion of India. Guess what happened next? For the Indian Muslim and non-Muslim elite, ye janwar log the. These were Baloch strange people. So you leaked that information that they had come to Delhi to the PTI, and the Indian government issued a statement denying that they were there, and that triggered the Pakistan army to invade Balochistan. Even your Maulana Azad thought that we were barbarians. That is why he was against partition, because he told the cultured Muslims of Delhi and UP, कि किन जानवरों के पास जा रहे हो? These people don't even speak Urdu. We were merely Kabuli Pathans for you. Sindhi मानू था, पता नहीं किधर से. India carries as much a weight of the crime of the blood that we have shed for your arrogance and to mollifying Abul Kalam Azad and Maulana this and Maulana that. Your first 5 education ministers were more radical Muslims than Mr. Jinnah. Your entire syllabus does not have one word about the Karkota civilization. You do not know what is Raja Dahir. There is no one in India, in any university, who can say who was Raja Dahir. No, we don't know. If you go to any Indian bookstore and say, I want to read about the 8th century India, you will not find anything. Because Mr. Azad made sure that Indians never find out that Muhammad bin Qasim was the first Arab to invade India, that all the old Muslims in old Delhi have Urdu books on Muhammad bin Qasim, and not a single non-Muslim knows who Muhammad bin Qasim was. Their heroes are Mahmud Ghaznavi. And you want to make the person who considers Mahmud Ghaznavi as the hero as a member of parliament. Don't sit it out. You sat it out for 1,000 years. Slaves have come and ruled you. खुदा के वास्ते सर, कुछ हिम्मत दिखाइए, कुछ थोड़ी गुंडागर्दी सीखिए. Otherwise we are finished. आप एहसान नहीं कर रहे हैं बलूचिस्तान पे उनकी मदद करके. You are rectifying the crime you committed when the Sultanate of Oman offered you Gwadar and you said नहीं चाहिए, पाकिस्तान को भेज दो. Look it up. They offered it to India and India said give it to Pakistan. So the Sultanate of Oman left Gwadar, which is now a Chinese naval base targeting India. Yes, you are not doing proper, showing proper respect to Bharat by thinking in the short term. Your entire culture is about long-term wisdom, but your actions today are very short term. You know, इससे दोस्ती कर लिया, उससे कर लिया, नहीं मैं. For heaven's sake, be aggressive. A Bombay badmash goes to Karachi and is causing havoc to you. He can send assassins to India to kill me, and they come from Pakistan. They get a visa, they come inside. The guy who was arrested in Bombay, I recall, I was there. How does this work? Every Indian Muslim has a relative in Pakistan. No Hindu in Pakistan will ever have any ownership in India. When Sindh ke Hindu want refugee status in Rajasthan, they are refused. Just imagine. You got to stand up, sir. You will not sit it out. Tell your colleagues to stand up. Fist for fist मारें आप. सिंध आपका है, हमारा नहीं है. आपके नेशनल एंथम से फिर निकाल दीजिए सिंध को. पंजाब, सिंध, गुजरात, मराठा आप कहते हैं, तो प्लीज टेक आउट सिंध. If you can't take out Sindh, then claim the Indus as your river. put a claim on Mohenjo-daro, Takshila, ये सब हिंदुस्तान का हिस्सा. Sit out ना करिए सर, या हमें बता दीजिए, हम भी sit out करते हैं. Anyway, that's my beef.
Can I step in?
Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Dr. Ashok, would you like to say something about it?
No, let me sit it out, till my Sindhi friend speaks.
Okay. So, yeah. So,
Then I will stand up.
Okay. So, I go on to invite Mr. Zafar Sahito, who is the founder and chief organizer of GSN Freedom Movement. And he lives in USA in exile since 2017, if I'm not wrong. And he's he started his, as I said earlier, he started his political career as a student leader. And so I would like to take his opinion on the way Sindhu Desh movement, because we don't see it much in the media, the how Sindhu Desh movement is working or is operational. So let's see what he has to say about the Sindhu Desh.
Thank you, everyone. And Khalsa, I'm thankful to you. Tariq Fatah ji, namaskar. Ashok ji, namaskar. Razak Sab, thank you for joining. I will start from 1940. 1940 resolution of Lahore, which unnatural Pakistan gave the name Resolution of Pakistan. Two-nation theory. In the whole world, there is no nation on the name of religion. And the religion, which is Badmash religion. Kabza karo, तोड़ो, जेरूसलम से लेके काबतुल्लाह से लेके हर जगह पे. Sindh में same thing happened. When Arabs invaded, they vandalized. एक religion के नाम पे, on the name of a religion, you are creating a nation which is nothing. What is definition of nation? Means you should be having your borders, you should be having your history, you should be having your culture, you should be having your identity. We cannot find Pakistan before 1947 any place. In this two-nation theory in 1940 resolution, it was nothing but to create the states which will be sovereign and independent. But in 1948, when ISI was created by British, they played with us, with everyone. Their intentions, British intent was to content red flag. But I surprised sometimes that what happened to Nehru and Gandhi ji, why they didn't realize that India is aparting. Everything is losing. What the hurry they had. Why they were so in hurry that they gave everything. And today, we all are suffering. If you look in Bangladesh, still terrorism is going on there. If you look in Jammu Kashmir, if you look at Kashmiri Pandits, even 2 weeks before what happened over there, 3 weeks before what happened over there, it is November, 26/11 is coming. Who is responsible for it? Sindh is mother. Sindh is a civilization. We have a history. If you look, Sindhu Desh In Mahabharata, you will find Sindhu Desh, Sindhu Naresh, Jaydhar. If you look Rigveds, you will find Indus River. Sindhu Saraswati Mata. Our everything is going from our hands. And we are just waiting that again a 26/11 will happen, again 9/11 will happen, again any terrorist act will, because Tariq Fatehji know Tharparkar is border with Gujarat, and in Tharparkar we Sindhis, the resident local people from Tharparkar, they are not allowed to enter these deserted areas, in desert area, because China is there. If I am a Sindhi, local Sindhi, I have to get permission from ISI, from Islamabad. Until I will not get clear from them, I cannot enter into Tharparkar. CPEC, if we look, they are saying that now they are moving from from Gwadar to Sindh, and Pakistani Prime Minister, that puppet Imran Khan, he has given that our whole coastal, and this coastal area of Sindh is bordering with Gujarat. Already 55% port. I have the report of Port Kasam. I have the report of KT Bandar. I have report of that 50,000 madrasas. If 12%, 10% can enter Bombay and make that mess, in which PM Imran Khan accepted that these were Pakistanis. 50,000 madrasa, what do you think? These are on the border in Tharparkar. Hafiz Saeed, Jamaat Islami, they are there. If we take 50 only, 50 Talibans in each madrasa, how many this Lashkar will be? What India is thinking that they are not, Pakistan is not getting prepare for this Ghazwa Hind? No, they are doing this. They are working on it. तारिक जी ने बहुत अच्छा कहा कि डोंट बी पैसिव, वेट नहीं करें, नाइदर इंडिया नॉट द वर्ल्ड. फ्रांस में क्या हो रहा है अभी? I remember when I visited London in 2009, in 2010, 13, I visited Germany, I was in Europe. It was good atmosphere over there. But when this Arab war happened and the lot of refugees came to Europe, now Europe is Pakistan. You are not safe anymore over there. The people who crossed from Turkey to Europe, you know, these was mostly, I can say that 50-60% these was Pakistanis, because they already planned that they have to move our people to Europe. So what I am trying to say, that it is not only matter of Sindh. We are already dying. Our history is dying. It is not that if you kill someone, shed the blood, it is genocide. You know, the worst genocide is when your identity will vanish. Hind ki identity Sindh se hai. The identity of India is from Sindh. Roots are from Sindh. आप किसी दरख्त की रूट्स काट दें, you will be nothing. So why they are killing these Hindus, and continuously they are trying to make them go from Sindh? Why? That is the reason. They want to change everything, and they are working on it. Don't take it light. Once the roots will be cutted, once the roots will be hollow, nothing will remain the same. And we don't have to wait for it. If really we think that any Nawaz Sharif government or Pakistan People's Party or any other group will come and Pakistan can be a democratic good country, hell no, because their bases are on ideology, which is to kill, conquer, loot, and vandalize. How many times India was attacked in the time of time period of Nawaz Sharif? How many times India were attacked in Bhutto time? 1971, who was there? Criminal, that Bhutto was there. Later on, Benazir was there. Our more Sindhis were killed in the time of Benazir Bhutto. In the time of government of Pakistan People's Party. Sometimes people are talking about these things that okay, if the फौज जाएगी और democratic system आ जाएगा तो सब सही हो जाएगा, पाकिस्तान अच्छा पड़ोसी बन जाएगा. Hell no, because they are created on the ideology which is to kill and dump. ISI के लिए पाकिस्तान बना था 1948 में, or they are going to run the show, nobody other. So this unnatural state, the state which was created on the ideology, radical ideology, I will say radical ideology, must meet its fate. We don't have to wait for that, or we will not wait that they will start the Ghazwa Hind and then we will do something. No, I don't think so. It is some good idea or something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zafar sir. Coming back to Mr. Tariq Fatehji, we have seen Soviet Union balkanizing in a 4 to 5 years time, starting from 85, from the oil crisis until 1991. I find a lot of similarities in terms of the economics of Soviet Union in 85 and the economics of Pakistan as in today. So Tariq ji, but do you think the economic downfall or the will not be able to bring the demise of this this country or the bring about the geopolitical changes which we are talking about, apart from the historical and the political factors?
Well, if you want to talk about the USSR, you have to understand that its dissolution was in concurrence with the Chernobyl disaster and its involvement in Afghanistan. The Chernobyl catastrophe literally destroyed the economy of the Soviet Union. You can imagine that 10 years of cement production went into locking down one nuclear reactor. And it was a non-stop economic activity at the time when the Soviet Union also had an army in Afghanistan at that time. It was a concurrence of these two factors that collapsed the Soviet economy, because the Soviet economy survived even 30 million people dying or being killed by the Nazis in the Second World War. It is fashionable nowadays to talk about Soviet Union as a failure, but the Soviet Union or the October Revolution gave us the 8-hour work week, which still has not yet gone away. It gave us the trade union movement. It gave us tenants' rights. It gave us laws of all sorts. And here in Toronto, where I live, there was a time when hundreds of thousands of people used to collect in the call of celebrating the October Revolution, and the Winnipeg General Strike, and in Chicago and in California were all inspired by that notion of that we will not take this, workers or ordinary people will not take this nonsense of near slavery at any time. So the economy of Pakistan cannot be equated with that, because Pakistan has no economy as such. Pakistan doesn't know how to plan, what to grow, what to export, how to import, and at every stage, from one single bullet to a tank, when it is imported, some military official, along with a civilian officer, has a cut in it. So the more it goes into debt, the more rich the Pakistani establishment becomes. So what will happen in the end is what China desires. China's entire East India Company type of philosophy is to indebt the countries to which it loans and then possess that country to an extent where Maldives today has to suffer the indignity of receiving all of China's garbage that is dumped on its coastline. Ethiopia, the same thing has happened. Further down, if you go to Kenya or Zambia, the China is doing the same thing with economy in mind by donating, by giving a debt and then cashing the debt in terms of land. With Pakistan, the wonderful thing is that the Chinese have already taken over the country in terms of CPEC, in terms of the gold and copper reserves that are in Balochistan, the oil, coal that is in Sindh. They are all given over to the Chinese. The coastline has been given over to the Chinese. So Pakistan and Pakistanis, especially the Punjabi community, or to which I belong, they will be very happy as long as there's somebody to rule them. And let me tell you a historical fact that always confounds me as a Muslim Punjabi, that although Punjabis have been a majority Muslim community for centuries, you will notice they never ever had a leader. There is no desire. Their desire to serve the invader has allowed every invader to come and jump from one river to another till Delhi Durast. The Punjabi will stand there and say, "Oh, udhar hai janab, Delhi udhar baitha hai, to lut lao to maine thoda ja paisa de diyo." We have become insensitive to anything nationalistic or have any aspiration of being someone. जो खैरात में हमें मिलता है वो मिलेगा, and now we have the guarantee that we can get an endless amount of money from China. So China at the most will make us their indentured slaves. So what? ऊपर वाले की, the ऊपर वाला writes everything for the future, and that is, I believe, that when we are born, our fate is written, and perhaps some part of God's machinery decides every Pakistani born is born in slavery. So what? We are allowing Pakistani Christian women to be taken away to China in the brothels. The indignity suffered by Pakistani men who go to China on sex tours is that the prostitutes over there refuse to engage with Pakistanis. But the Pakistanis are very happy. So Pakistan's economy is the least of the problems of Pakistanis, Punjabis, basically. They know that they will get the bhatta one way or the other. They got it from Temur, they got it from Altamash, they got it from Babar, they got it from everyone who crosses rivers. You cross 5 rivers, there was always someone sitting there. Paji ko paise te de diyo. Oh, he would take the money. Oh, Delhi Duras. Oh, Delhi Duras. Till Delhi, the first fight would take place with the Pashtuns, and then Punjab straight line, and then somebody would fight them in Delhi. इधर कहीं लड़ाई हुई नहीं है. They have just, even in 1965, अच्छा लाहौर आ गए यार, हट जाओ. The Indians got fooled. They thought कि कोई master trap है पाकिस्तान का, कि Indian army will be trapped. There was no Pakistan army. They run away. They had left Lahore, a divisional headquarters, and they were on trains to Quetta because इतनी तनख्वाह में तो नहीं कोई लड़ता है. I'm serious. 71 war, I was in Sialkot at that time. You know, you cannot imagine the condition of the Pakistani troops that did not have proper jackets to wear. They were given kambal. You know, वो woolen ऊंट के बाल की जो होती है. They were holding on, honest to God, like primitive soldiers. Shakargarh front, where the Indians had advanced into Pakistan, the bunkers were freezing. It was, I think, February when I went there, and poor guys had run out of ammunition. The officers that were 20, 25-year-old urban pappus, they had also withdrawn, and these sipahis were sitting there with nothing, food, no food. I'm an eye and ear witness to that. There were trenches with soldiers who had not got food to eat. तो ये टूटेगा नहीं तो क्या होगा? But economy is the last problem for Pakistan's upper middle class. You can come, and this, if you think Pakistan is that aman ki asha tamasha, that these women who come and go and say, oh, Pakistan mein to humse koi paise hi nahi leta, you know, taxi bhi free hoti, biryani bhi free hoti. It is the biggest lie. That same mother will tell her children कि जब तक हिंदू सारे मर नहीं जाते इस्लाम नहीं आएगा. वही आपको कहेगी आइए आइए प्लीज, बड़ा अच्छा वो सब्जी बनाई है मेरी बीवी ने. No, these are two-faced liars who have lied for the last 1,000 years or more. They lied in Lahore. The residents of Lahore do not know that Lahore and Kasur are named after the sons of Ram. Perhaps even Indians don't know. But in Lahore there is no Hindu, in Kasur there is no Hindu. And yet these are the cities named after the son of Rama. ये उल्टी पुल्टी सारी चीज हो गई partition में sir. Lahore, a city of Hindus, does not have a single Hindu living anywhere. गंगाराम अस्पताल ऐसे ही नहीं बन जाता. एक एक हिंदू को मार मार के निकाला है. ये बाकी सिंध में क्यों नहीं हुआ ये? क्योंकि वो उनकी the commonality between Hindu and the Muslims was the Sindhi language, the तौर तरीके जिसे कहते हैं, the culture. These guys, Punjabis, became Urdu speaking overnight. The entire 100 million होंगे या less than that. Overnight they dropped their mother tongue and became Lucknowites. These are people with a shattered identity crisis. Don't bank on that. Is why a Sindhi or a Pashtun cannot say कि हमारे बड़े भाई हैं. अरे कहाँ से? They know their language. They speak to the children in their language. The women speak Pashto or Sindhi on the street with these in the stores or wherever. Punjabi ka ye hai, they think that only the working class deserves to speak Punjabi. We are upper middle class, therefore we will speak Urdu. लेकिन हम रॉ को फिर भी राई कहते हैं. ये रा से पैसे आए हैं, तो उससे पता चल जाता है कि वो पाकिस्तानी इल्जाम लगा रहा है. इसको माफ कर दीजिए सर, इसको तोड़ दें. अशोक भाई किसी से कह दीजिए कि कम से कम कंबल तो भिजवा दे बलूचिस्तान में, एयर ड्रॉप कर दें. बोले जहाज से गिर गया यार बाय मिस्टेक, ऐसे करिए, उप्स गलती हो गई. कंबल, गेहूं को, गन्ना को, रास्ता कुछ तो, अरे कुछ नहीं तो दिल्ली में बलोचिस्तान हाउस बना दे, सिंध हाउस तो बना दे, राजा दाहिर का एक स्टैचू तो खड़ा कर दे सर. स्कूल के सिलेबस में तो राजा दाहिर को एंटर करें. You know, your UP chief minister didn't know about Raja Dahir. This is off the record, but he said, "कौन है?" मैंने कहा सर माई बाप है हमारे. He is the first Raja to fight the Arab invasion of India. But India doesn't teach that.
Very true.
Pehli masjid, the first mosque in Islam was not, after Medina, was not in Arabia, was in Cochin. Abhi bhi hai. Not a single Muslim leader of Delhi has ever visited that mosque, except your president, Abdul Kalam, the nuclear scientist. He's the only Muslim leader in 1,000 years to visit the first mosque of Islam, which, by the way, faces the east. It's the only mosque. But this is what it is. We have the monsoon Muslims in India, and we have the barbaric Muslims of the north. किसकी चलती है इंडिया में? The barbarians. Nobody talks to the Mapillas have done their own damage to slaughter Hindus, but that's a story which you can lay the path on Gandhi ji, who wanted a Khilafat movement in Kerala. But क्या करें? गलतियां एक नहीं है, बहुत है. But at the source of it is this notion that Roz-e-Qayamat, end of times, will not happen till every Hindu is dead and all of Hindustan is cleared of every Hindu temple. This is it. But Ashok Bhai, tell your friends that you may know this, that this is the belief of every Indian, Hyderabadi, or Kashmiri, or Calcutta. Even Banerjee might believe this, or Pakistani. This is their belief. All Hindus have to die for Roz-e-Qayamat to come, because it is only after end of times that people like us will get a date, and not one but 72. जमीन पे तो हमें कोई गर्लफ्रेंड मिलती नहीं है. इस पजामे कुर्ते में कौन आएगी? वो ₹1 वाली चीज, चाइना की टोपी, जो अरबों की टोपी का अंडरवेयर है, वो हमने अडॉप्ट कर लिया. The Muslims of subcontinent never wore that crap जो अरब अपनी तोप के नीचे पहनता है. Now we wear it as a main dress. टोपी का अंडरवेयर पहन के घूम रहे हैं लोग. दिल्ली की सड़क को रोक के नमाज पढ़ रहे हैं. आप कह रहे हैं अच्छा भाई 10 मिनट रोक जाओ. He is not praying. He is telling you, Ashok Bhai, that you don't belong here. This is my territory. They do it in Paris. They do it yahan. They tried it in Toronto also. So we did some non-political. हमने वहाँ सायरन बजा दिया था, जाके हाथ का नहीं होता. फिर रोजा खुल गया, दोपहर की नमाज थी, हमने अनाउंस किया रोजा खुल गया. But the primitive nature that you will go to Paris, block the main street and say, you can't touch us, we are Muslims. Khalid Saab, aap Delhi, have you been there when they blocked the street? The mosque is right there. And they block the street. And everyone just stands there patiently. As soon as the traffic moves, people are honking each other. But if a Muslim is praying, all of India goes into sajda. अरे भाई, इसको पागल को हाथ नहीं लगाओ, एक दंगा हो जाएगा. The threat of danga controls all of India. कराची में नहीं करते, बीच सड़क के अंदर दरख्त के नीचे पत्थर लगा के फलाने सूफी साहब का मज़ार है ये. The whole road gets taken over. After 5 years, there's a mosque there.
Very true. Very true.
So this is what we have to fight, and this fight will be. India cannot say I am not involved in this fight. We are your front troops who are guarding India. It is just not the cricket match where they celebrate India's loss.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My question is related to what comes to my mind is that Zafar Saito Saab and Razak Baloch both can, add to that. The freedom movement of, be that of Sindh or be that of Balochistan, does it have, apart from the nationalistic factors, does it have the religious intonation into it as well? So if it is, because basically the Sindhis and Balochs are Muslims as well. So my question is why India would like to help them if they are more Muslims and less of humanists. So what's the answer, Zafar Sahab? Can you please explain that? I hope you understand what I mean.
खालसा, जो आइडेंटिटी क्राइसिस होते हैं ना, द क्राइसिस बिकॉज ऑफ आइडेंटिटी, सिंध was a historical, Sindhis was a historical nation. In Pakistan या कोई भी इन्वेडर या कहीं पे भी जब कॉलोनाइजेशन होती है, तो फर्स्ट थिंग व्हाट दे डू, they try to wipe out the roots of oldest civilization or pre-people. तो पाकिस्तान को अव्वल दिन से मालूम था, when the Pakistan was created and the ISI was created, they were familiar with it, that if they will not wipe out identity of Sindhi people, and our identity is not Sufi or more than Sufi, we are the first Sanatani people, and it is in our nature. You can change the habits, but you cannot change the nature, because it is it evolves inside you from the nature. पाकिस्तान ने शुरू दिन से, जिनको पंजाबी, सॉरी टू से, पंजाब नाम है तो उनको बोलना पड़ता है कि पंजाबी है, तो रंजीत सिंह का अभी कुछ टाइम पहले मजस्मा बनाया था, उसको तोड़ दिया उन्होंने। तो देखें, यानी ये नफरत है अपने कल्चर से, अपने हिस्ट्री से, अपनी तारीख से, अपनी आइडेंटिटी से।
No, my question is, sorry, my question is about the Sindh.
मैं उस पे आता हूँ कि सिंधी in nature, in their religious prospect, they are very secular and peaceful people. लेकिन उस पीसफुल का ये मकसद नहीं है कि हमने कभी अपने कंट्री को, अपने धरती को, अपनी लैंड को प्रोटेक्ट नहीं किया है या उसके लिए फाइट नहीं की है। हम लड़े हैं, हमारी तारीख लड़ी है। तो हमारा जो सिंध का रिलीजियस पर्सपेक्टिव है वो बहुत सिंपल है कि जियो और जीने दो, मीन्स we have to live. But देखें, अभी सिंध के बहुत सारे लोग और हमारे जितने भी सिंधी नेशनलिस्ट हैं, उनकी इंक्लाइंड है सनातनी धर्म के तरफ, लेकिन क्योंकि अब पाकिस्तान, पंजाब ISI पावर में है, they are not providing that space to grow that element. But I am sure that once we will reclaim our country, we will reclaim our land, we will reclaim our national identity, we will go to our roots, and यही रूट्स ही हमें आगे लेके जाएंगी, यही रूट्स ही हमारी पहचान है, यही जो हमारा सनातना धर्म है, हमारे ऋग्वेद से हैं, हमारा जो हिस्टोरिकल जो आइडेंटिटी है सिंधियत की, सिंधुइज्म की, वही हमें आगे लेके जाएगी। और we are going to be, this region is going to be savior for everyone, क्योंकि हम सनातनी धर्म जो हमारा है, हमारी जो शुरुआत जहां से हो रही है, इट इज प्योरली कॉमन सेंस, और इसी कॉमन सेंस से ही पाकिस्तान को नफरत है। ये पंजाबियों को नफरत ही आर्मी को और इनको कॉमन सेंस से नफरत है। बाकी जैसे एक मर्तबा इन चीजों से हम अगर निकल आए तो होपफुली वी आर गोइंग टू बी ए prosperous nation, and we can work even with India, with Europe, with all the civilized nations. बहुत सारी मर्तबा मुझसे ये भी क्वेश्चन किया जाता है कि जैसे बांग्लादेश बन गया तो वहां पे अभी रेडिकलिज्म हो रहा है, ऐसे ही सिंधु देश बन जाएगा तो कल एक मुसलमान हमारे लिए नया पैदा हो जाएगा, या सिंध अगर आज़ाद हो गया या बलूचिस्तान आज़ाद हो गया, तो देखें बांग्लादेश में भी अभी तक जमीयत बाकी है और उसकी रूट्स पाकिस्तान में है। वो जहां वहां जो कुछ भी हो रहा है, या इंडिया में जो मुसलमानों को जो भड़काया जाता है या जो यूज किया जाता है, उसकी रूट्स पाकिस्तान से ही मिलती हैं। तो एक मर्तबा ये मिलिट्री स्टेब्लिशमेंट पंजाब और पंजाबी ISI, इसको आप जो वजूद है ना, इसको खत्म नहीं करेंगे, वी कैन नॉट गो फर्दर, वी कैन नॉट come out of that living fair living. तो जैसे ही एक मर्तबा ये ISI, ये तालिबान, ये दाइश, ये दहशतगर्द जो भी हैं, इनसे जान छूटेगी तो हम अपने रूट्स की तरफ जाएंगे। और मेरी जो थॉट है वो सेक्युलर, नॉट ओनली सेक्युलर बट मोर देन सेक्युलर, हमारी जो विश है कि हम अपने रूट्स की तरफ जाएं और सनातनी धर्म की तरफ जाएं, जो कि एक नेचुरल वे होगा हमारे लिए, फॉर द बेटरमेंट।
Your thoughts are commendable, and I would be very surprised to know that so much of indoctrination which has been going on since Pakistan came into being, and especially in the academia and academics and whatever is being taught to the children in schools, still, if that roots of Sanatan roots are there, that is really a very pleasant surprise, I would say.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I would request Razak Baloch sahab to speak on the same. So, what about the roots of the nationalism or Baloch nationalism and versus their Islamic say indoctrination?
There are two parts to this question. I'll put it in two parts. One part is for centuries, new modern education was not there, but we have a code of conduct in Baluchi, our traditions. In Balochistan, whoever came and took shelter, the Hindus, the Christians, and Hindus are original people in Balochistan, but other people also take shelter. So our traditions, you will see that nobody was hurt. First, let me put it this way: Baloch, मजहब के नाम पर किसी से भी नफरत नहीं करता है. This is the tradition we teach. We have been taught and we teach. And plus, when you see the modern politics, the modern leadership, our leadership has played a big role in the political system and in teaching us the Baloch student organizations, our political parties never teach the hate or never tell you that, okay, which religion you belong to. That is why our leader, Dr. Tarachand Baloch, was a minister in Sardar Ataullah Khan, Sardar Akhtar Khan Mengel's government. And as I said, in 1947, not a single Hindu left Balochistan. And we are protecting all the mandirs. Instead, when they were attacking Akbar Khan's palace in Sui, they attacked the Gurdwara and the mandirs, and we protect them. And even after that, see, the more time you are giving them, they are also putting madrasas in Balochistan also. The more time the world is going to give them, the more radical madrasas, radical people you produce. What is their productivity for the society when you come out from the madrasa? Pakistan is using them as a tool to blackmail the world. And this must be stopped. And you have the power, and you have the ability, and then you want to set it out, that's not the option. So you must play your role to contain them. As Tariq sir says, at least throw some blankets over there. You're not playing your part. If you play your part, we were neighbor of India for centuries. We did not have any problems, because this problem is created by Pakistan, and Pakistan is playing two parts. One is the charity from outside, and one is these madrasas and to blackmail the world. Okay, if you don't do this, they're going to come out and destroy the world. So better you play your part to destroy them and stop them, and so that everybody, unless this country is broken, and you're not going to live in peace, and we are not going to live peace. So decision is yours. So let's see when you play your part. Thank you with that.
Thank you very much, Razak sir. Actually, you have spoken about the madrasas. The sad part is that even leaving aside Pakistan, the Indian government has not been able to ban madrasas. We have been talking about it for a long time, and the role the madrasas play in indoctrination and creating a mass level, I would say, dissatisfaction from the civilian rule. I would like to ask Dr. Ashok about it, that why the Indian government is not able to secularize the education system and stop this religious education in the name of madrasas in India. So I request you to.
No, abhi tak I was sitting it out. Now I will stand up. So, point I'm making is,
Thank you.
I think Tariq Saab jo bole na, it's not entirely true. In fact, I have received education in the same schools and colleges in which perhaps the purported chief minister did, but I have been taught Dair. It's not that we were not taught. In fact, I remember in the very first history book that I read during my class 4 or 5, we were taught about Dahir. So it's not true that it was not there. Coming to the other issues like whether Pakistan has, what is the religious dimension of these movements, because I have studied the ethno-cultural movements in the neighborhood, including the Baloch and the Sindhi identities. And I have many friends who are Baloch and Sindhi in the diaspora, and we have met often and we have discussed issues in detail. मैं हमेशा ये देखा हूँ, if I can break into Hindustani and address it, because the true essence will come in then. तो मैं जब भी अपना बलोच और सिंधी भाइयों को थोड़ा एक अस्सलाम वालेकुम करके करता हूँ ना, तो I always am rebuffed. बोले कि आप you don't need to do that, डॉक्टर साहब. आप नमस्कार बोलिए, हम नमस्कार करेंगे. So don't need to break into that. So that suggests, the kind of nationalist identity that is there in both the both Sindh and both in Balochistan. So I would say that what we are doing in India is slightly different. I will tell you one thing. What Fateh Sahab bole, बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग था. वो बोल रहे हैं कि यार रास्ते में जा रहे हैं, नमाज पढ़ रहे हैं, और यहाँ पे सारा हिंदुस्तान जो हाथ जोड़ के बैठा है कि यार कब इनका खत्म होगा. This is both a strength and the weakness, as he called it. He said it is a weakness. I can also say it could be a strength as well. I will tell you, this TTP का एक leader था, that was Hakimullah Mahsood, and before he died, he had one interview with BBC. And the BBC guy asked him that what is your take on Kashmir and what are your options? on Kashmir. He said, when I was a young boy of about 17, 18, I was drafted into the jihad by ISI. So I landed up in Kashmir. And I went around and I saw that when मुसलमान लोग जाके नमाज अदा करते हैं जुम्मे के दिन, तो बाहर हिंदुस्तान की फौज खड़ी होती है और उनको तहफ़्फ़ुज़ देखना चाहती है, तो और उनको प्रोटेक्शन देती है। लेकिन इन पाकिस्तान में देखो, हर एक आप जुम्मे के दिन आप नमाज पढ़ने जाओ, अगर आप जिंदा लौट गए तो आप बहुत भाग्यशाली हैं, आप बहुत व्हाट यू से फॉर्चुनेट है। तो मैंने तैयार किया कि पहले मैं पाकिस्तान जाऊंगा, पाकिस्तान को इस्लामिक मुल्क बनाऊंगा, फिर कश्मीर देखूंगा। ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी है। आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू पुट इन माय एनेक्डोट्स so that we get a rounded picture of everything. So it's true that India has been a little more tolerant than perhaps Tarek Bhai would want it to be, but it has its own strength. By sitting it out, I didn't say that we want to sit it out. I say that if the contradictions ऐसा है ना पाकिस्तान के अंदर, तो अगर इंडिया सिट आउट भी कर जाता है, ये क्रम्बल कर जाएगा। इस तरह का एक मेरा सोच है। बाकी रहा कि कुछ इंडिया कर रहा है या नहीं कर रहा है, देखिए, इंडिया इज अ कंट्री ऑफ 130 करोड़ पीपल। आई एम जस्ट वन ऑफ देम। वो जो अनबियरेबल लाइटनेस ऑफ बीइंग मिलन कुंदरा का पढ़े ना, तो ये बड़ा लाइट है। मेरा जो सजेशन है, मेरा जो पर्सनल ओपिनियन है, बड़ा लाइट है। आई गो अक्रॉस एंड मीट मेनी पीपल अराउंड मी इन द स्ट्रेटेजिक कम्युनिटी ऑफ दिल्ली, of which I have been a part for the last 35 years that I have been in Delhi. I can only say that oddly about 50%, 45 to 50% of the people say that India must teach a lesson to Pakistan. So वहाँ भी एक I would say that एक सोच है कि पाकिस्तान को सबक सिखाना है, और कुछ उनमें से बोलते हैं कि एक अखंड भारत करना है। But I don't think that's the way the government thinks. There is a lot of personal view about how to tackle Pakistan, perhaps a little more aggressively than I would imagine, but it is there. But because India में एक सोच है कि एक वेस्टफैलियन मॉडल ऑफ स्टेट में वो जो है, तो इस तरह की सिचुएशन नहीं आया है विज़ावी पाकिस्तान कि हम सिंध में या बलूचिस्तान में उस तरह की इंटरफेरेंस कर सकें जो इंटरवीन हम किए थे बांग्लादेश में। मैं बस प्योरली आपको एक नजरिया देता हूँ। I'm not saying that that's the only way it is, but in case of Bangladesh, you see the history was of a different kind, and the situation was different, and foremost जो cause वहाँ पे था कि there was a total Bengali solidarity. अब देखिए 169 में से 162 सीट्स आवामी लीग ने ले लिया था, and which is purportedly the freest and the fairest election that Pakistan had ever had. So in that sense, the kind of ethnic solidarity that was there in Bangladesh, and in response to which Pakistan unleashed its genocide, is perhaps not there in both the case of Sindh and also Balochistan. ये मेरा एक सोच है। और दूसरी बात ये है कि we are living in a different situation altogether. तारिक भाई ने बहुत अच्छा बोला कि इकोनॉमिक ये बेसिस पे पाकिस्तान क्रम्बल नहीं करने जा रहा है। इट्स अ क्लाइंट स्टेट, इट्स अ रेंटियर स्टेट, और ये नहीं टूटेगा। और आप चाइना के बारे में बोले, मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि जो अनुदान पाकिस्तान को दिया जाता है, द ऑफिशियल डेवलपमेंट असिस्टेंस जो पाकिस्तान को दिया जाता है, आई वुड से द मेजॉरिटी ऑफ इट कम्स फ्रॉम द वेस्ट, नॉट फ्रॉम चाइना। चाइना इज अ माइनर प्लेयर देयर। पाकिस्तान को डूबने नहीं दिया जाएगा by the West, not only China. So ये मेरा सोच है। So economically वो नहीं होगा। ये जो पाकिस्तानी एक आर्टिफिशियल एक फॉल्स आइडेंटिटी जो इम्पोज कर रहा है ऑन अदर्स, उसका जो रिएक्शन होगा उसमें पाकिस्तान को चोट पहुंच सकती है। That is what my take is. और I am here as and I think I count myself as Indian as all of you are, because the sentiment that I see today is that whether it is from Sindh or from Balochistan or from elsewhere, you have a very, I would say, exaggerated notion of India and view of India. Unfortunately, the cultural, the cultural, civilizational, geocultural expanse of the India that you have in mind is perhaps not the India that today's state of India is trying to manage or acquire. They may be moved by that kind of an idea, but I don't think they want to acquire that kind of a civilizational, geo-civilizational space. So उसमें क्या होता है ना, आपकी एक्सपेक्टेशन में और हमारी डिलीवरी में बहुत गैप आ जाता है, और ये गैप आता रहेगा. But I will convey as a strategic researcher, as a researcher of strategic affairs, I do convey your sentiments to the people that be, and I'll keep on conveying it. I am in no position to direct the Indian state to do one thing or other. It's my personal take. You may say that I come from the distant end of India, Odisha, where people are living more pacifist than you find in the northern India. So, and maybe that is the reason why I say what I say. But I would say that to expect a lot from India will be a mistake for nationalists like both Mr. Baloch and Mr. Saito. Don't expect too much out of India. I think it is better that you fight your struggle in a manner that there will be ethnic consolidation of a time that the world will be forced to listen to you. That is what my take is. And thanks for having me in such an enlightening discussion. And Tarek Bhai has always been very, very interesting, and I keep following him. And we have met in Delhi. We have discussed all these issues that we are discussing today, if you remember, Tarek Bhai. and you know my views. Lot of it, I cannot bring to the public domain. So that is what my views are. But I personally believe that Indian state is not going to behave the way you want it to behave. That's my take. That's my reading of the situation in New Delhi. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much, sir. And I would again invite Tariq ji for a concluding remarks on this discussion which we had. What is he may like to have some rejoinder to what Dr. Ashok has said.
No, not exactly a rejoinder, but I think there is merit in what he's saying, that unless and until the freedom movements, if we can call them that, of the Baloch and the Sindhis is not reflected on the world stage, it will not move. We have to understand that the Bangladesh freedom movements, one of the things that made it into a universal event was George Harrison singing Bangladesh in Manhattan or some place like that, and a song came out called Bangladesh, and it was a concerted effort by East Pakistanis or Bangladeshis around the world to have tiny spots, groups of people who were lobbying their legislatures, which I feel is missing in the case of the exiled Baloch leadership, that they have failed to come together and present a Baloch national formula or a proclamation of independence, or we the people of Balochistan, or a document around which they will unite, whether they are friends of mine like Mehran Mari, or those who coil around Baramdak Bukti. But one thing I will put it on the record is I was a witness when in Switzerland the Indian consulate assured Baramdak Bukti of getting refugee status in India, and then subsequently India backing down from that promise and abandoning almost the entire Baloch leadership in Switzerland, when China, which literally owns Switzerland, arrested all of them and barred them from ever speaking over there again. I'm an eye and ear witness. I was there myself in Geneva. So these are things that should not have happened. But I think the first step that needs to be taken is to have, whether it's the Baloch American Congress or the coming together of an international convention, or to have it in London and get members of parliament or congressmen involved in it. We have not succeeded. Compare that to how we did it in Canada, where we were able, just a handful of us, to convince Chris Alexander, the then Minister of Citizenship, to get Karima Baloch and Latif Johar and another woman whose name I forget, who went back to Dubai. She found life in Canada a bit hard. We brought them, got them Canadian citizenship. Unfortunately, Karima passed away because of her personal circumstances. But we managed to do that. We still have Chris Alexander, a former minister and Canada's ambassador to Kabul, who has, I think there's never a day goes by where he doesn't tweet the hashtag sanction Pakistan. I rarely ever see any of my Baloch or Sindhi friends retweeting him. I'm just giving this as a tiny example. There were members of Congress who were in the so-called Sindhi caucus organized by my friend Ligari, Munabo Ligari, but it didn't expand to that level. Bhule Shah has a very famous line about ego, where he says it shouldn't exist. And I think that is one aspect of our middle class ego, that when we start to organize, we become the center of attention, and we lose sight of why we started to do this. So from say 10 years ago, when nobody in India perhaps knew about Balochistan, to today, where it is practically anyone in politics knows that this is a basic issue. We've made a great leap forward. In the United States, we have to do the same, but it can only have effect if members of parliament in Britain take up this issue from the Labour Party side, or we have one member from the Conservatives who's always there at every pro-Indian event, but no one has centered around the dissolution of Pakistan and what happens to its nukes. It's the only country that has made tactical nuclear weapons as part of his defense mechanism, which means bombing it's willing to bomb its own troops to dissuade the enemy from invading it. So we'll be dealing with a very specialized suicidal sort of mentality that is now armed with tactical nukes. It's very difficult to think about it, and few do. So Israel may be permanently obsessed with Iran getting nukes, whereas just next door to it is a country that already has nukes. But since I think there's a race element to it as well, Europeans or Israelis do not consider anything east of the Himalayas to be people who can do any other work other than run Uber taxis or run corner stores. So we don't really count if India and Pakistan have nukes. They stop where the Persians stop, and they want to stop them. Whereas Pakistan already has nukes, and no one in Israel ever even talks about it. So these are our problems. We can take advantage of this and correct our ways or improve our ways, but it cannot happen till you have a coalition of like-minded people who do not have themselves at the center of the argument, but Balochistan and Sindh as ideological centerpieces on which to discuss. whether it's a festival of Nani ka Mandar jo hai, uska aap kare, kuch karna hai, I am sure people can come together and do quite a lot. But it has to be done before we can ask anyone else to help us. We also have to understand that part of Balochistan is occupied by Iran. And one last thing I want to emphasize, in the last invasion of Afghanistan by Pakistan-backed Taliban, the leading force was from the Afghan areas, Baloch groups within Afghanistan, from the tiny belt, Nimrud and that part, that took up the arms and became the forefront. I'd never heard of Baloch jihadis, but in southern Afghanistan, they did evolve into that area. So there are too many factors to resolve, and a television discussion may be simply the surface. But what we do understand is, without collective decision making and strategic thinking, nobody is going to come to help us. I can assure you that much. We will have to be in the news. You know, when Donald Trump talked of the art of the deal, I think we need to make sure that we know what is the art of the tweet, the art of social media, to make our case, which means anything we say has to be grammatically perfect. We cannot make mistakes anywhere in how we project our case to the ordinary person, or to combat those hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis who live all across, wherever you find immigration doors open, who are more nasty and more pro-Pakistan and Islamist than people living back home.
True.
So, multiple problems, but I think first step needs to be to organize.
Thank you very much, sir. So it was a wonderful discussion, and we are ending up on a positive note that it is collective thinking and strategic planning and joining hands and minds together. And there is no easy solution to the problems of this area. And with passage of time, with more struggle, with more efforts, time will come when this region will, we hope, will see more of peace and prosperity, and we will grow together. All parts of the subcontinent will grow together. And with this, I thank everyone, Tariq Fateh ji, Zafar Saito Saab, Razak Baloch Saab, and Dr. Ashok, for all of them, for their candid remarks and their great brainstorming. And it was a great brainstorming session. Thank you, everyone.